What's up, everyone? Welcome to Ashley Talks Movies. I'm back with another review. This time I'm going to be talking about Bad Boys for Life. Will Smith, Martin Lawrence are back as Mike Lowrey and Marcus Burnett, two Miami cops who rarely play by the rules. This time around, they're called back into action to team up to help take down the leader of a dangerous drug cartel. So I've never really been a huge fan of the Bad Boys franchise. I like action films, but I just never really got into Bad Boys. The first movie was okay. The second one was not great. So I didn't really know what to expect going into the third one. I had very low expectations, if anything. So surprisingly, this third film is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. That's not saying a whole lot, because again, my expectations were really low going into it. But it's pretty much what you would expect from a Bad Boys film. So if you are a fan of the franchise, Bad Boys for Life will probably be right up your alley. And if you're not a huge fan of the franchise, well, as I mentioned before, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are back. And with this film, they kind of take a different approach than they did with previous films. This time around, they're not young, sort of rogue, renegade cops, right? They're much older, in some ways seemingly wiser, but this time around it's a little different. And this movie definitely plays into the fact that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are older, even with some of the jokes that they use, which they do a lot of age jokes in this movie, repetitively at times too. But I will say a lot of it works. A lot of this movie works because of the great dynamic between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. They play off each other really well. So that dynamic is very, very strong. And honestly, that's what makes the movie, at least in my opinion, tolerable, especially if you're not a huge fan of this franchise. The action sequences are actually really good in this movie as well. This movie is not directed by Michael Bay. The previous Bad Boy films were. This one is not. But it doesn't really matter because there's still those Michael Bay touches in there. Lots of explosions, not nearly as many as you would normally see in a Michael Bay film. But there's explosions and there's action sequences, although I will say the action sequences in this film I think are a lot cleaner than they were in previous Bad Boy films. You can actually see what's going on, so the action is not as frenzied and frantic as in the previous films. The stunt work is actually pretty good here too. There are a couple of times in the movie where it's noticeable that they used CGI in some of those scenes, and so if you're paying close enough attention, it kind of takes you out of it because it's glaringly obvious that there's CGI there, and the CGI is kind of bad. The one thing that I didn't really like in this movie, I mean, there's a couple things I didn't like about the movie, but I think one of the things that really stood out to me that just didn't really work that well were the villains in this movie. And in previous Bad Boy movies, the villains have never really been the strong point of the film. I think that's a similar case here. The villains are kind of one note and mostly caricatures and stereotypes, which is a shame. It would have been nice if they could have fleshed them out a little bit more. And I don't know, just give the villains a little bit more presence, and not rely so heavily on stereotypes. There's also a twist in the film involving one of the main characters that I kind of saw coming, but then when it happened, I didn't like it, and I honestly don't think it worked in terms of, I know why they did it. Okay, I understand why they did it. When you're watching the movie, you understand why they did it. But I didn't like that happened, and I don't think it worked well. I mean, I feel like it just kind of threw what little cohesive story was there sort of out the window, and it just kind of took me out of the film. The movie does have Some things going for it, as I mentioned before. You know, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith's dynamic really carry this film. The humor is there. They have some really great chemistry together. The jokes are there. The action sequences are great. So, I mean, if you're literally going for a Bad Boys movie because you like Bad Boys, this is fine. It's not directed by Michael Bay, but you're going to get what you expect to get. You're going to get action, you're going to get jokes, you're going to get Martin Lawrence and Will Smith doing their thing. But with that being said, this movie is not great. And, you know, I really think there could have been an opportunity here to do a lot more with this franchise, especially because it seems like, based on like sort of how the movie ended, that they could be setting up for Bad Boys 4 or going in a different direction. And, you know, with it being revitalized, there could have been more done with it. So that's my take on Bad Boys for Life. Let me know what you think about the movie in the comment section below. While you're here, please like this video and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.